Pride goeth before the fall. What goeth before grace? Pride goeth before the fall, then hands the baton to regret, who then runs with it for the rest of your mangled, pathetic life. What is this pride that goeth before the fall? Actually, the passage comes from Proverbs, and it's pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit goeth before the fall. We've just kind of collapsed it down. But what goeth before the grace? The gospel lesson, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I kind of moved back to what we read last week, some of what we read last week. But anyway, here is Mark 7:17 through 30.
When he left the crowd, entered the house, his disciples asked Jesus about this parable. Are you so dull? He asked, don't you see that nothing that enters a man from the outside can make him unclean by going into him? For it doesn't go into his heart, but into his stomach, then out his body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on. It is what comes out of a man that makes him unclean, for from within, out of men's hearts come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All of these evils come from inside and make a man unclean. Jesus left that place, and he went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house, and he did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an evil spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia, and she begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and give it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. The woman left, found her child lying on the bed, and the demon gone.
Those two stories, those two parts, where Jesus is saying where evil comes from, followed by the Syro-Phoenician woman, the woman whose daughter had the demon. I don't know if that happened in that order, but Mark, or whoever wrote that gospel, put them in that order. Somebody put in that order. God helped put that, or inspired to put them in that order, because it's interesting. Jesus has just said that the evil comes spewing out of the heart, and he makes a long list. It includes things like arrogance. And then he meets this foreign woman, this Gentile, this unclean woman, and what comes out of his mouth? But a certain amount of arrogance. The children's bread should not be thrown to the dogs. He called her a dog. A female dog. He was calling her about as bad a name as he could call her. Because he was tired. He'd gone to Tyre not because he was going to do ministry there, but because he had done so much and he'd worked so hard and he put up with so many of these Pharisees and these people telling him, you shouldn't do it that way. He wanted a place to get away from it all, get away from all the people hounded him, and have some rest and relaxation. Just a time to be with the disciples. But here comes this woman. She will not let him alone. And he's feeling really up against the wall. And he calls her a female dog. I don't know how she did it. Because if I'd been called a name like that, I would have gotten huffy, gotten up and walked out and said, I'll never listen to that guy again. But like in that presentation, she enters into the complete helplessness of the moment. She completely lets herself go. And in the middle of that metaphor he'd used, that cruel statement Jesus had used, she grabs it and she turns it around and she says, but even the dogs under the table gets the crumbs the children drop. She completely let herself go. Not like another lady I knew once. She was a good lady. She was in church. She said to me, I know God may love me, God may forgive me, but I'll be the judge of that. For all of her goodness, for all of her righteousness, she did not know the love of God. She did not know the grace of God because she had shut it out. I found out later that she'd had a terrible childhood. Her father believed in literally beating the hell out of his children. Children are full of sin, full of hell, and you should beat it out of them. And she had grown a hard shell around her heart. You come close to it, and she would lash out. The woman that Jesus met may have been like that, but in fact, what she says that it broke open, it came loose. A fellow by the name of J.R.R. Tolkien told about that in the book The Lord of the Rings. He had a character called Gollum. Now, Gollum was a hobbit, simple being, but he had found the ring of power. And for a simple being like Smeagol, that was his name, Smeagol, that meant the power of possession and control. And he kept that ring, and he did awful things with the power of that ring, and he became Gollum. Oh, there's a part of us out of which comes this trying to take care of ourselves and hold ourselves and be in control of ourselves and trust nobody, and we'll do whatever it takes to survive. But that part cripples us and turns us into little beasts like God. The faith we're looking for is not something we get by reading the Bible or by holding our mouths just right or being in church every Sunday. It's about letting go of whatever it was that was standing between us and God. That's what Jesus is saying to the Pharisees when he says that any food is okay to eat. He's saying nobody can stand between you and God. And there's a very good reason. Because while God is out there and more than we can possibly imagine, God is in here and more than we can possibly imagine. And it's our own insistence on our own way that keeps us separated. John Wesley, the guy who founded the Methodist movement, was methodical. He got up at 4 a.m, he read the Bible, he prayed, he did certain things, he wrote some things, and then he had his breakfast, and he went and did a Bible study with people, and he helped people who were poor. Everything had a time and a place. They called him a Methodist. And he was something of a prig. He went to the colony of Georgia, to Savannah. His hope was to minister and to convert the Indians there, to save the Indians. He got caught up in all kinds of things with the colonists and settlers, and he had a really bad experience by not marrying Miss Sophie Hopkins, and she got upset. And she married somebody else, and he denied her communion, and then he got in trouble with her uncle, who was the head of the colony of Savannah, and there was these spurious lawsuits against him. Finally, he didn't run away, but he left at midnight. He went back to England, and he moped around for several months. He said, I went to save the savages, but I hardly feel saved myself. You see, he was missing it. His pride was getting in the way. One day in May, he went to St. Paul's Cathedral, and he was knocked away by the hymn. And then that evening, he went to a Bible study. He said he went rather unwillingly. His brother had said, yeah, go to this Bible study. It's really good. And he said, okay, I'll go to the Bible study. He went to the Bible study. He said about 9:15. Some guy was reading Luther's introduction to the book of Romans. And it was the part about how the old Adam dies and the new Adam is reborn. And suddenly, Wesley says, he felt a strange warming in his heart. He felt suddenly that Jesus Christ had died for him. Even him. He realized he was a sinner too. It wasn't those other people. No matter how hard he tried to be good enough, he would never be good enough. But Jesus died for him. I believe in Christ and him crucified. The old Adam died. It went away. Wesley went on to preach something like 8,000 sermons, to travel all over England back and forth for tens of thousands of miles in a little country about the size of Missouri. What goeth before grace? You should know by now. Humility goeth before the grace.